Long before Ghana became the first African nation south of the Sahara to break free from colonial rule, its people carried something more powerful than weapons. They carried memory. Memory of ancient empires, proud kingdoms, sacred stools, fearless warriors, and a deep belief that no one was born to be ruled forever. This story begins not with independence, but with resistance. Long before Europeans arrived, the land we now call Ghana was home to advanced civilizations. The Bono Kingdom, the Mole Dagbani states, the Ga Adangbe communities, and most famously, the Ashanti Empire. These societies had systems of governance, justice, commerce, and spirituality that rivaled any in the world. Gold flowed through their markets, culture shaped their laws, and unity defined their strength. Then came the Europeans. First the Portuguese in 1471, then the Dutch, Danes, and British. At first, they came to trade, gold, pepper, ivory, but trade soon turned into domination. Forts rose along the coast, cannons faced inland, and slowly foreign control tightened its grip. But the people did not submit quietly. In 1824, the Ashanti defeated the British at the Battle of Nsamankau. Again and again, Ghanaian warriors resisted colonial expansion. One of the greatest symbols of this resistance came in 1900, when a woman stood up against an empire. Her name was Ya Asantewaa. When the British demanded the golden stool, the sacred soul of the Ashanti people, the chiefs hesitated. But Ya Asantewaa did not. She rose and declared, "If you men will not fight, then we the women will." She led the War of the Golden Stool, proving that resistance lived not only in swords but in spirit. Though she was eventually exiled, her courage ignited something deeper, a fire that would never go out. Still, colonial rule tightened. By the early 1900s, the Gold Coast was under full British control. Schools taught European history. African traditions were pushed aside. Land was seized. Taxes were imposed. The people were governed by laws they did not create, in their own land. Yet beneath the surface, something powerful was forming. The educated elite began to organize. Newspapers spoke boldly. Trade unions mobilized workers. Soldiers returning from World War II came back with a new awareness. If Europeans fought for freedom abroad, why were Africans denied freedom at home? Then came February 28, 1948. 3 ex-servicemen, Sergeant Adjite, Corporal Adepo, and Private Odarti Lamptey, marched peacefully to present a petition to the colonial governor. They were unarmed, they were respectful, but they were shot dead. That moment changed everything. Riots erupted across Accra and beyond. Shops burned, crowds gathered, anger boiled over. The British realized something terrifying. They were losing control. And from that fire, a new leader emerged. His name was Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah had studied in the United States and Britain. He returned with ideas of Pan-Africanism, freedom, and self-rule. But unlike others, he believed independence should not wait politely. It should be demanded. In 1949, he formed the Convention People's Party with a simple but powerful slogan, "Self-government now." Not tomorrow, not later, now. He organized strikes, he mobilized the masses, he went to prison, but even jail could not silence him. In fact, imprisonment only strengthened his popularity. When elections were held in 1951, his party won overwhelmingly, and Nkrumah was released from prison to become leader of government business. The revolution had entered a new phase, but the struggle was not over. Negotiations continued, pressure mounted, the people marched, organized, and refused to retreat. And finally, after decades of resistance, sacrifice, imprisonment, and bloodshed, the moment arrived. March 6, 1957. At midnight, the Union Jack came down, the Guinean flag rose. The Black Star of Africa shone for the first time. Kwame Nkrumah stood before the world and declared, "Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." But Ghana's revolution was not just national, it was continental. Nkrumah believed Ghana's freedom was meaningless unless Africa was free. Ghana became a center for African liberation movements. Fighters from across the continent trained, strategized, and found hope in Accra. Ghana funded revolutions, hosted leaders, and inspired nations. The Black Star became a symbol, not just of independence, but of possibility. Yet freedom brought new challenges. Economic pressure mounted, political tensions grew. In 1966, Nkrumah was overthrown in a coup while abroad. Ghana entered a period of instability, coups, military regimes, economic hardship, and political uncertainty. But the revolutionary spirit did not die. In 1979 and again in 1981, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings led coups that claimed to fight corruption and injustice. His rule reshaped Ghana's political system and eventually led to the birth of the Fourth Republic in 1992, restoring democratic governance. Since then, Ghana has stood as one of Africa's most stable democracies, a nation that proved that revolution does not always end in chaos. Sometimes it ends in institutions, but here is the truth. Ghana's revolution did not begin in 1957. It did not begin with Nkrumah. It did not begin with guns. It began when a people refused to forget who they were. It began when Yaa Asantewaa stood before chiefs and chose courage. It continued when soldiers marched unarmed. It exploded when the masses demanded dignity. And it lives today, in classrooms, elections, markets, churches, mosques, and dreams. Ghana's revolution was not just about removing colonial rule. It was about reclaiming identity, reclaiming voice, reclaiming destiny. And today, every Ghanaian, whether in Accra, Tamale, Kumasi, Cape Coast, Hoa, or beyond, walks in the footsteps of that revolution. Not because history ended, but because responsibility began. And now, let me ask you something. If you had lived in colonial Ghana, would you have stayed silent, or would you have stood up? Because the truth is, the revolution didn't end in 1957. It simply changed form. And the next chapter is being written by people like you. If this story moved you, inspired you, or taught you something new, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because history lives only when we tell it. Until next time, this is the story of Ghana, and this is the power of freedom.